Well, thank you, Tanaka-san. We do indeed have a history together. In fact, his kind introduction was, I think, simply a repayment for my kind introduction of him at MIT a few years ago. I also want to thank Chairman Hanyu for his remarks and for the hospitality of the Sasakawa Peace Foundation for hosting this event. I'll also go back with Mr. Tanaka and just note that it was a pleasure certainly working with him at the IEA and of course subsequently. And I just want to say that I think he really was a pioneer in bringing the focus of the IEA on climate change issues. And I think that's something that we appreciate very much and will be a lasting contribution to that. The relationship between our two countries remains one of the cornerstones for peace and security throughout the world. I think our countries have, as you all know, forged a robust and unshakable partnership. It embraces trade and commerce, finance, security, science and technology, and energy. And together, I think we are and will tackle some of the major global challenges in a world that is changing quite rapidly. President Obama is very committed to the bilateral relationship with Japan. He's been here twice. He's hosted Prime Minister Abe at the White House in February. He's also emphasized, that is, President Obama has emphasized, really increased emphasis in our foreign policy to refocus priorities in Asia, even as we maintain commitments in the rest of the world. The President said, and I quote, "The United States has been and always will be a Pacific nation, and here we see the future." So when we look at where America's priorities lie now and for years to come, it's clear that nowhere in the world are there more critical opportunities to advance our economic interests, our security interests, and our enduring interest in promoting universal human values than in the Asia-Pacific region. Climate and energy lie at the heart of this focus. Both are key components of the U.S. Japan bilateral relationship. Demand for energy has increased dramatically as Asian economies continue to grow, creating many opportunities for economic cooperation and a clear need for smart growth. In Japan, especially following the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station accident, energy security has taken on even greater significance here and elsewhere. Now, turning to the climate challenge, I want to say that our view is that we are past debating whether we need to respond. Debate with Congress and internationally is now much more focused on what is it we do, how much do we do, how fast do we do it. How fast we do it is a critical issue. Because of the cumulative effect of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, remembering that carbon dioxide has really centuries of residence time in the atmosphere. Every ton of CO2 that we release counts against the emissions for our generation and for the next generations. As the IPCC report recently stated, if one looks at what you might call the human emissions budget for carbon dioxide, to stay within the kinds of bounds we think are prudent, which is to have a high probability of no more than 2 degrees centigrade temperature rise, we will run out of room for more emissions in about a quarter century if we keep doing what we are doing today. That's not a lot of time to change our energy system, and so in fact the time really is now for all of us to work together to change the system. But I do want to emphasize that the risks of climate change certainly are tremendous for our children, our grandchildren, but we should also not overlook the fact that there are risks today as well. 2 days ago was the first anniversary of Hurricane Sandy that hit the New Jersey, New York area of the United States so hard. more than $60 billion of damage, tremendous damage to our energy infrastructure, a harsh lesson in how our infrastructures are interdependent: electricity infrastructure, information infrastructure, fuels delivery infrastructure, so that, frankly, even in a very advanced country, in a wealthy region of the country, weeks, literally weeks, of not being able to restore full energy services. Now, we cannot attribute, any individual storm specifically to climate change, but neither can we ignore that statistically we are seeing exactly the patterns of storm intensities, droughts, floods, wildfires that were predicted a quarter century ago. And so we do need to think that this is costing us today and not only creating major challenges for our children and grandchildren. Japan itself has experienced 2 major typhoons in the last 3 weeks. And we know that these types of extreme weather events are becoming more intense and more frequent. So in this context, I should also say that we certainly are increasingly viewing climate change as not only an environmental threat, but also a national security threat. For example, in parts of the world, particularly in parts of the world where perhaps societies are not well organized, not well off economically, climate change, because of major environmental dislocations, can also be a huge threat multiplier in this world of global terrorism. So addressing climate change, again, has enormous consequences in many dimensions. So this kind of provides the backdrop for President Obama's climate action plan that he put forward in June. The plan has several elements, and I want to emphasize 3 major points about it. The first point is that the action plan has 3 pillars. One pillar is mitigation, that is reducing greenhouse gas emissions so that we can, in fact, avoid major increases in global temperature and major implications of climate change. This, of course, will bring us to the clean technology agenda, to which I will return. But a second pillar that the President emphasized is adaptation. That is, the President recognized that, as I said earlier, we are already experiencing the effects of global warming. We're going to experience more even as we mitigate, and we have to face this and start the process of adapting. For energy, what that really means is, and certainly in our case, that we will incorporate resilience to major disruptions as one of the key criteria as we develop the energy infrastructure of the 21st century. The third pillar is international cooperation, recognizing, of course, that a solution to climate change, to global warming, can only be one ultimately in which all of us are doing our part across the globe. And this is a major focus of our trip this week in the Asia-Pacific region. As we head to Warsaw, on the road to Paris in 2015, it's really important that the United States and Japan stay aligned in our approach to international commitments. Our climate action plan in the United States gives us a strong platform. And of course, we understand that Japan still needs to work through its energy policy in this post-Fukushima period. We've heard that already in the introductions. But again, it's critical that each of us presents our commitments and again stays well aligned as we go forward. So the first point was the President had these 3 major pillars, including a new focus on adaptation. The second basic point concerns the question about whether the United States or other countries will, in fact, carry through the commitments that it announces. So this is where I want to stress this may involve the niceties of our governance system, that the President's plan, very extensive and very ambitious, is, however, based exclusively on actions that rely upon the authorities the administration already has. That is, it does not rely upon any further actions in the Congress. The conclusion of that is we will execute this plan. And I think that's very important, again, as we head on the road, particularly to Paris for the COP meeting at the end of 2015 for international discussions, that we will be vigorously executing our climate action plan. As an example of that we are pursuing this, I would note that in the area of coal, for example, the Environmental Protection Agency has already put out, as promised, a draft rule that says that any new coal plant built in the United States already must have carbon capture and sequestration technology. The Clean Air Act, which provides the authorities for such rulemaking, has always been there to push technology. So this rule pushed the technology, but then the Department of Energy responsibility is to push the technology forward and to lower the costs. And so, on top of the $6 billion that we have already committed to carbon capture and sequestration technology, we have already committed an additional $8 billion of a loan guarantee program to stimulate the deployment of low-emitting fossil technologies. So, again, what I really want to emphasize is this is a plan that you should expect will be executed, and that will have enormous implications for the United States, but I think it will have implications as well for all of our international relations and provide a platform for leadership in the international climate change discussions. The third point that I want to make about the plan is that it reflects the President's all of the above energy strategy. So what does this mean? First of all, make no mistake, all parts of the plan are put in place in the context of moving to a low-carbon economy. However, to do so, what we are committed to do, and the Department of Energy has again a major role, especially in terms of technology development and deployment, we will pursue the technology directions so that all our fuel sources can be competitive in a future low-carbon marketplace, whether it's coal, gas, nuclear, renewables, efficiency. We are aggressively pursuing all of those directions. If I look at renewables, for example, today, this is a case where I think many people have felt that renewable technologies are and always will be 5 or 10 years away. We are saying we don't believe that's correct. If one looks at the facts on the ground, the tremendous cost reductions in wind, onshore wind especially, photovoltaics, LED lighting, even vehicle electric batteries, what we are seeing is tremendous cost reduction, associated tremendous deployment increases, and we believe we are right now at the beginning of that true revolution of tremendous introduction of these technologies. As one example, or a couple of examples actually, in wind, in 2012, for example, wind was the largest electricity source deployed in the United States, new source deployed in the United States. In just 5 years, photovoltaic panels have had deployment increased by a factor of 10, certainly in part because of a 75% decrease in the cost. Here in Japan, we know the government has introduced very strong feed-in tariffs, and this is certainly generating substantial investment in the renewable sector, including from U.S. companies. and power generation from solar PV, therefore, has increased dramatically with almost 4 gigawatts of new capacity installed in the first year of the program alone. Similarly, we see wind, geothermal energy, all coming forward under the umbrella of these government policies to stimulate renewables deployment.